What if I told you that on delivery apps, per hour is a very poor measure of how much income you're actually pulling in? And I think I've explained this on this channel ad nauseum before, but it all boils down to expenses. Expenses, expenses, expenses. But Jason, you've spent vehicle expenses to get to a W-2 job. This is true, but you don't spend vehicle expenses to perform your W-2 job. You may spend a few miles to go back and forth to get to your W-2 job. But they pay you they pay you enough while you're doing your W-2 job that you don't have to spend any vehicle expenses to perform your work. In third-party gig economy driving, you do. The job literally involves you spending vehicle expenses on your vehicle. So you have to subtract this from any calculation of income. Just simply saying how much you're getting per hour paid by the apps is not accurate. It isn't. If you're going to do this per hour, here's how I would do it. You're going to take the amount that you get paid by DoorDash or Uber. You're going to subtract your vehicle expenses, which in my case I've already previously said I've calculated as 72 cents per mile. I have a gas guzzling Kia Sorento, so my gas expenses on that equation are kind of high. My insurance is a little higher than most too because my track record driving isn't the best, and neither is my credit record, although it's no longer the worst either. These things all work against my auto insurance rate. Auto insurance is mandatory in all 50 states, plus DC. So anybody who drives has to have this expense. Gasoline, of course, is a mandatory expense. You're not going to be able to perform your job without it. And of course, as I've said before, I always consider vehicle depreciation an expense. Deferred maintenance is an expense. You're racking up the miles, so you're racking up money that you're spending on oil changes, tire rotations and replacements, light bulbs going out, things like that. Subtract all of this from your revenue, which is what I consider driver pay to be, simply revenue. On a profit and loss statement, that is your revenue. Your expenses are, well, just that, what companies call expenses. Revenue minus expenses equals net profit. Now, if you want to calculate your net profit and divide it by the number of hours that you drive, perfectly fine. But don't come out here and say that you're making $30 an hour when you're simply being paid by DoorDash $30 an hour. That is not accurate. Not accurate. Per hour is a terrible metric or terrible expression of how much you're actually making as a delivery driver. You know, when you're traveling for business, for example, I know this having worked for a Fortune 500 financial institution, you are paid for miles that you spend driving to the meeting. This is on the federal vehicle expense formula, which in 2026 will be 70 cents per mile. Entire companies and entire businesses have built up around this calculation and providing this payment to its employees for their vehicle expenses. The most famous one is called Concur. They will pay employees to travel to sales meetings if they can drive locally to get to them. I know I've received many of these payments myself. So vehicle expenses are a very real thing. All Fortune 500 companies recognize them and use software like Concur to reimburse their employees for this expenditure. DoorDash and Uber, of course, do not, because they have us classified as independent contractors, whereas a Fortune 500 company has people classified as employees. Big difference, of course. Companies do not have to provide their independent contractors expense reimbursement like this. So, calculate your actual expenses and make a determination from there. Based on your revenue, minus your expenses, then you can figure out, based on that profit number, what your actual pay per hour is. So stop posting in these forums that you're making $25, $30 an hour, because you're not. You're not. This is a response to a specific post. I'm going to leave it at that for today. Best of luck out there, and remember, expenses while you're out there. Peace out, homies.